Okay, here we go. This is the second half of the week, I guess we'd say. This would be normally what we would see in our lab portion of the class. We've got a few documents here that you can download if you want. I'll be walking through a PowerPoint presentation called Evaluating Sources. And the idea behind this is to give you an idea of how we would like you to be looking at your research. When you're finding these documents, if it's a book or an article or a website, whatever it might be, how can you tell if it's a good, reliable source for your research? And as part of that, we're going to be looking at what's called the CARS evaluation tool. You can download this if you want, but if you don't have access to it right now, that's okay. I'll be showing you all the important stuff in the PowerPoint presentation anyway. Then at the end, I'd like you to have a look at this Evaluating Sources Lab activity. This is a document that has a few different reference pages with reference entries and some questions about those reference entries, whether or not these websites and books and things really represent quality research or whether they should not be used in a research paper. And there's just some questions there for you to consider and to look through these sources. So I do really encourage you to take some time to go through that activity. So right now, I'd like to just start the presentation. And we'll get the captions going here. And start right away by saying when you search for information, you're going to find lots of it, but is it accurate and reliable? Now, a few of you have already emailed and said that you're having trouble finding information. And, if that's the case, just let me know and I can help you narrow your searches down. I can help you navigate the search engines and maybe you'll be able to find more useful information. But the more common problem is that you find too much, and it's very, very hard to know what the good stuff is. It takes practice to be able to do this. One of the ways that you can help find really quality information, and that's really what you want, the highest quality information that you can get, is using this CARS test, C-A-R-S. And the CARS test stands for credibility, which means we're looking for believable, well-written information that's free of bias. So when we say it's free of bias, what we mean is that the writer is not attached to one view or another or trying to promote one view or another. They're trying to be as objective as possible. Now, we don't know necessarily how objective it's even possible to be, but we can recognize in a lot of this research that they're at least trying to present facts and information without their own personal opinions injected in there. We want to locate information about the author and we want to know about their credentials. We talked a couple of weeks ago about credentials. Who is this person? Where do they work or do their research? What other research have they done? What kind of experience do they have in this field? If you can't find any of that information, I would be a little bit worried about that source. If you can't find an author name, you have to ask yourself, why not? Why isn't the author named? Or if there's no way of contacting the author, again, you would be asking, why doesn't this person want his contact information out there? The A is for accuracy. Obviously very important. The information should be up to date and very clear. By up to date, we mean relevant to sort of the recent research, recent information. For example, if you're researching something about computer programming and you find an article from 1982, it's probably not going to be relevant for modern programming research. You can confirm accuracy by locating information from a variety of sources. And look for a last updated date. This is something that you'll often find on articles on the internet is a publication date, but then underneath that there'll be a date that the article was updated, where information was improved by adding more recent data. The R stands for relevance. Relevance means the information should contribute to your knowledge on the topic you are researching. This sounds really obvious. Of course, it should contribute to your knowledge on the topic that you're researching, but it's surprisingly common for students to find things that aren't necessarily directly related or directly relevant. Maybe they get a little carried away and they think it's just so interesting that they want to include it, even though maybe it doesn't belong in their essay. Or it's possible even sometimes a student might not understand the full article or the full book, whatever it is they're looking at, and it might not actually be relevant, even though they think it is at the time. So be careful to check. It should support your thesis and research question or offer a substantial counterpoint. It should be written at a level appropriate for inclusion in your research. Again, very important. This is one of the things that I've been stressing for the past few weeks. Things like blogs and top 10 lists and things like that may not be at a level that is appropriate for a college essay like this, a college research paper. On the other hand, if you're using Google Scholar and finding really high-level academic writing, it might be too complicated for your audience. This is something that you're going to have to really think about as you move forward. Finally, the S is for support, which just means that other sources should support the information found. If you're only finding one source or one piece of support for a certain idea that you're looking at, it might not be as accurate as you think it is. Always look for a reference list. Always look for citations that show you where this information came from, and you might even take the time to track down those citations and make sure that it's quoting or paraphrasing the correct information and actually giving the support that it claims to give. So that's CARS: credibility, accuracy, relevance, and support. These are some very, very general ideas that you can be thinking about as you're doing your research. So, moving on, I'm going to go really quickly here because, again, I know you've already gone through an hour or so of videos for the other part of the week's lesson, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of your time on this one. But it's pretty important that we understand what kinds of library resources you'll be encountering. When you use the library search engine, most often it will tell you underneath the name of the source what type of source it is. And it might be an academic journal, or it might be a periodical, which means a magazine or journal of some kind, or another kind of journal. It might be a newspaper, it might be a book, an ebook, it might be a video. It'll let you know what type of source you're looking at. But I think it's important that we take a minute and just examine these sources to find out what kind of information is in them. So here we can see thorough and effective research is like a balanced diet. We give our body the nutrition it needs by incorporating a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, etc. And you can probably guess the significance of this metaphor is that when we are studying about a topic, when we're doing research, we want to collect different kinds of research, different sources, so that we don't have just one simple kind of research being represented in our paper. We can have a wide range of perspectives and a wide range of information. And that's why we use the library, and that's why it's such a helpful tool, because it tells us right away what it is we're looking at. So down here there's a link to a video to reviewing the different kinds of materials. I'm not going to show that video in this video. You can link to that, and I really recommend that you do. In the next couple of slides, we're going to see the breakdown of this video, what they talk about. So you can see, for example, they're going to introduce the idea that books are in-depth, detailed, and provide historical information. When you're looking for in-depth information, highly detailed information, or something that might be a little bit older, something that goes back a few years, books are a great resource for that. Of course, the downside is they're not always current. They're not always right up to date, because it takes a long time to research and write and publish a book. And, they often sit in libraries for years and years and years. So, be careful to check the publication dates and the relevance and whether or not the information is up to date. Newspapers, on the other hand, are, of course, specializing in recent events. And these articles are very short, they're very to the point, and they're about things that are happening, immediately. Yesterday, the day before, over the past week, this is where you're going to find very up-to-date information. You won't, however, usually see citations or references in a newspaper article. So tracking down other sources, can be a little bit difficult to try and supplement a newspaper article, but again, if it's a well-known newspaper, you can usually trust the information that's in there. Popular magazines are another type of research that you might use. Here we have detailed discussion of news and current events, where the newspaper might just tell us what happened and where it happened. The popular magazine article might go a little bit deeper and say, who was involved and why these things were happening, a little background, so that we can understand events a little bit more clearly and more fully. These are longer articles. There's more information in a newspaper, but of course less than a book. Trade publications and journals can be really, really helpful. Everything from accounting to woodworking and plumbing and electronics, anything you can think of, we can find a trade publication or a trade journal. This is, they're often called trade magazines too. And this is information that's related to a very specific field or profession or industry. And the articles are written by experts in that field who are working in that industry. The audience is usually people working in the field too. Academic journals, my slide got cut off here. I'm not really sure what happened. I'm just going to exit for one quick second so we can actually see. I don't know what's going on here. I'll just shrink this down for now, and then I'll try to fix it later. Oh, maybe I won't shrink it down for now. It's not working for me. I think it's because I made it in PowerPoint and I'm trying to show it in Google Documents that it's not quite working out the way I hoped. But anyway, we can see here anyway that academic journals have very specific research findings written by scholars, written by researchers. And these are really usually very highly academic language and can be a little bit difficult to read. So if you don't include any academic journals, I would completely understand. So